I'm real excited about being with you today to cover three basic concepts. The first is to provide for you a framework for how the President sees economic growth in very much the same spirit that Dana had just outlined. Second, to highlight some of the key priorities that occupy my time and how they relate to the great work you're doing here in Hampton Roads. And then a final call to action about what you can do with the opportunities that are before us. Before I get into the remarks, I wanted to just pick a couple of quick observations for those of you that hadn't had a chance to see them. I want you to take a special look and attention to the FIRST Robotics team that you're going to have demonstrating some of their tools later today. They're sitting right over here, I would imagine. I had the pleasure of going to the national competition in St. Louis and to see tens of thousands of young people. No matter what your background, you didn't have to have a PhD in physics in terms of your future track. Folks that would have thought of themselves in auto mechanics or in other areas found the time to engage in FIRST Robotics and saw a future in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics that wasn't as restricted as what you otherwise might think when you go to science class in school. And that exposure, that opportunity, the inspiration that you find from teams like this is a heartwarming experience, and I would encourage all of you to hear the stories of the kids who are participating because it'll give you some sense of what the future will look like for the country. Now on to the framework. In September of 2009, the President delivered a strategy for American innovation. Because as Dana said, for our long-term economic prospects, we will have to get the right ingredients of policy, that gardening concept that he outlined in terms of this bottom-up culture of economic growth, and some of the big problems that face us as a nation addressed if we're to be as successful in the coming decades as we've been in the past. This strategy has three basic pillars. First, that America is at its best when we invest in the building blocks of innovation. Research and development today stands at roughly $150 billion with support on a bipartisan basis going across all administrations. That is the fuel that led to innovations like the internet, which came out of DARPA, or GPS that came out of the Defense Department, or our weather service that came out of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. If you think about the building blocks of innovation, research is one component, but human capital is just as equally important. And that STEM education that Dana referenced and that you heard from some of the speakers in the video montage points to the fact that we've got to get a workforce for the 21st century. But it also means an infrastructure that is equally set to the 21st century. Traditionally, our good friends to my left, our roadways, railways, and runways today are also commingled with the concept of broadband and wireless infrastructure to be the fuel that rockets up our economic engine. The second pillar of the President's strategy for American innovation is to focus on market opportunities that reward entrepreneurship. The President has been a strong believer from day one. If you look at the data, high-growth entrepreneurs have accounted for the overwhelming share of net jobs over the last several decades. In other words, there's a boom and bust cycle in the economy, but what moves the net new jobs up the stack are the American spirit of new companies that form. And even if you net out those that fail, on average, the high-growth entrepreneurs have been the catalyst for net job creation. But last and certainly not least, the President has said that there are a few areas where we need an all-hands-on-deck approach to unleash a clean energy economy, to deliver a healthcare system that rewards value over volume, to ensure that we have a manufacturing sector that once again leads the world. For each of these areas, I'd like to share a few thoughts about how they relate to assets here in Hampton Roads. So first, a little bit about some of the context behind what I said of the infrastructure. McKinsey, in the spring of 2011, published a study that said for America's economic prospects to thrive, we must reassert our productivity engine. And this graphic tells you that on certain sectors of the economy, our productivity engine has been phenomenal. In IT, in real estate, in financial services, which as many of you saw was a bit of a challenge for us over the last several years. But the way these sectors have harnessed technology, data, and innovation has been key to their success in fueling job growth and productivity growth. People assume they're often at odds with one another. In fact, the McKinsey research says they're very much tightly linked. But if you look at the sectors that I've circled, with all due respect, my friends, that's our transportation sector, our government, our public sector, this is no news to anybody in the room, our healthcare sector, and our educational sector, these have been effectively flat in productivity growth. A key pillar of our infrastructure strategy is to deploy next-generation broadband technologies on wireless, that is cell phones. All of us are sitting around with our mobile phones in our pockets, to unleash the power of this infrastructure to transform the productivity engine in these laggard sectors of the economy. MIT just published a study that found industries that instrument their operations, that is, they're data-driven, outperform on productivity between 5 and 6% their peers in the industry sector. It's also about harnessing that research and development base, the $150 billion we spend as a nation, to launch the jobs and industries of the future. First asset here in Hampton Roads to share. Dana mentioned that the Economic Development Administration is supporting the planning efforts. But there's also a contest right now underway in the EDA. It's called the I-6 Prize. $1 million to 6 communities with the potential to double it up if you can harness the research assets of your region to deliver the green jobs of the future. This I-6 Prize, by the way, is due May 30th or May 27th, whatever the day, May 27th. So get at it. You're on it? You're on it. But I wanted to share with you that part of my responsibility is to give you the information you need to find the research. It turns out that we haven't been as transparent as we historically should have been in describing for you where all these research assets are. Poor Dana's had to put together the maps and figure it all out and study it all. And you can see in that graphic I've zoomed in on the research awards that have come to the Hampton Roads region. Just to give you some greater transparency to know who the research investigator was, what the topics were they were covering, and what you might do to engage that researcher so that you can commercialize that idea. It's also about a new initiative the President outlined called Startup America, entirely financed by the private sector, led by Steve Case, who chairs the board, formerly of AOL, but involves a whole bunch of other folks who are saying, you know what, we just need a call to arms. It's time for us to step up and improve the entrepreneurial engine, more shots on goal, this is hockey season, and the increases in the rate at which we are successful in translating startups to high-growth businesses. To give you an example of what Startup America has been engaged in, again, you can visit the website at startupamericapartnership.org. The Blackstone Financial Group just last week announced a $3.6 million grant to the North Carolina system, anchored at UNC, but covering all the regional universities in that Research Triangle Park area. Why? Because they believe they can increase by mentorship. The $3.6 million is minuscule grants to startups and the hiring of expert entrepreneurs, that is the successful folks who want to give back, to serve as specific guidance force for those startups to grow at least 30 new businesses a year, and then over the course of the 5-year commitment to generate over 17,000 new jobs in the Research Triangle Park. They did it because it was a call to arms. They're all coming forward, over $800 million of private sector pledges and commitments already since January when we launched the Startup America Partnership. Just to give you an example of what the entrepreneurs are doing, these two random guys, the Alford brothers from San Diego, they found government data that had been locked up in a file cabinet on the amount of money people spend on their 401k fees. Dana, did you know we pay a management fee on our 401k plans? It's not on your statement. You don't know what you're paying. They're entrepreneurs, grabbing data, making businesses. What I do for the president is to think about policy a little bit beyond what you normally think when you talk to folks in Washington. Traditionally, it's I got to talk to my member of Congress, we got to pass a bill, we got to lobby for money for a specific program. Those are policies for sure. But on the tech team, we've identified 3 additional policy levers that in large part do not require new money or new programming authority. We can just do them in the spirit of Commonwealth that has been the hallmark of what Virginia has been all about. And those 3 policy levers are engaging in pre-competitive research and development collaboration, promoting open data, that is opening up the treasure trove of information we have in Washington for entrepreneurs to consume and build new businesses, and to engage in industry-led, voluntary, consensus-driven standards activities. If we run these three technology policies and we do a better job of engaging the American people, we believe we can translate this into results that will increase the economic performance of the country and strengthen our overall health and posture. 5 challenges I'd like to share with you that align with the Hampton Roads assets that Dana was talking about earlier in the day. My first challenge to you is to think about how your modeling and simulation assets can power manufacturing. In our policy objective, we are trying to democratize access to these modeling and simulation tools, especially to small to medium-sized manufacturers, to increase their competitiveness. There's no reason why the modeling and simulation tools that have helped the biggest corporations on the planet, including our federal government, our military, that those same tools couldn't be deployed to help the small mom-and-pop shop that is out there working hard, playing by the rules. To contribute to this, we invested in a small research and development project with Procter & Gamble, Lockheed, John Deere, General Electric, and the research assets of Ohio and Purdue to put together a small cloud computing-based modeling and simulation program that will help small to medium-sized businesses. The first of these cloud computing applications went live last week. It's called OpenFOAM, a tool that Procter & Gamble delivered as free and open source to the entire world, including everybody here in Hampton Roads who'd like to build on this tool. And the good folks at manufacturinghub.com at Purdue University have established a web portal that allows you to interface with this fluid modeling and simulation tool. Not to be outdone, our good friends here at NASA Langley have contributed the first of many open source modeling and simulation tools called OpenMDAO, a tool that would allow you to better understand the implications of certain designs and the efficiencies there. And you see an example of a wing design that could be deployed using these open source tools. Every single one of you can access manufacturinghub.com today and build at your heart's content. Challenge 2, we want to modernize our aviation sector. As part of our 21st century infrastructure, we understand that by powering our aviation sector with information, we can achieve the green objectives that you outlined as a priority for the region. We believe that the Next Gen program, which is what fuels all of this, by the year 2018 will reduce flight delays by 35%, our carbon emissions by 14 million tons, and to address our fuel consumption by over 1.4 billion gallons. Now, what's happening here in the Hampton Roads region? My man Bob Lindbergh's in the house. You got a bunch of assets, Lisa Rowe at NASA, Bob, a bunch of others, engaging with the Virginia Department of Aviation to find out how might we modernize the general aviation sector to prototype as early adopters these capabilities. And should Hampton Roads not, Dana, be the place where we invent the tools and the services that will fuel these new capabilities as they're introduced to the aviation sector? You can just see 2 examples: the flight and traffic information services that will bring data on weather and other information to the cockpit so that our pilots can have a safer and more cost-effective experience in the airplanes. Third challenge, our country has to shift the healthcare system from one that pays for volume of care to one that delivers on value for care. Dana described for you it's important for our competitiveness, but it is my humble opinion that it is you here in Hampton Roads that have the assets that will invent the tools and services necessary to make this shift. What we've just gone through in a big debate on healthcare, whatever your views were, we have put in place the component parts for a fundamentally changed delivery system that helps the patient by keeping you healthier, focuses on wellness and prevention. There are incentive payments, accountable care organizations and patient-centered medical homes and so forth that will allow the healthcare providers in our communities to think anew about what it is they can do to keep you healthy. These ideas, these payment incentives, require a whole new range of IT-enabled services. Will you be building those services, Dana, here in the Hampton Roads region? I believe you can. The Commonwealth of Virginia, if you combine Richmond and Hampton Roads, accounts for the majority of all enrolled patients in the Defense Department and the VA's collaboration for health data sharing called the Virtual Lifetime Electronic Record. So on the ground today, out of the entire country, 50 states, the majority of the enrollees in data sharing for our military veterans and our active duty to share information is here in the Hampton Roads and Richmond regions. Will you be engaging in that ecosystem to find out what are the IT needs to make sure that those veterans and those active duty military members and their families get the best treatment that they deserve? If you've got data flowing in this region, Dana, you can build the applications of the future right here. That's just a third challenge I present to you. Fourth, my man Jim Batterson is in the House. Jim is a NASA fellow who Governor Kane brought into the administration in 2007, I believe, to help us think about a framework for how our learning system should focus on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And as I must give a shout out to Jim, he's emphasized the E in engineering is not a traditional discipline in our high school or K-12 system. Well, what are we going to do to take this educational system of ours and ensure that it delivers the success we want it to for the next decade and beyond? The country is making a shift from a largely print-based educational system to a digital-based educational system. Those little laptops and tablets and other tools in our hands, they will replace our textbooks and learning materials. It may not happen tomorrow, Dana, but it's going to happen in the near future. And it will open up a whole new opportunity for technology and innovation to change the way we learn. I shared in that graphic an example of how our military is proving this out. DARPA has a program called Educational Dominance. How's that for a cool title? Educational Dominance. The idea behind educational dominance is very simple. If you studied the best teachers in America, what makes them so successful is that they adjust what they teach based on the students' needs. They're not robots where you push play and out comes a lesson plan that's inspiring. They're nimble, they're agile, they understand the needs and they customize as best they can in the classrooms that they have. DARPA's Educational Dominance Program captured that logic and said, based on the students' interaction, we could better understand whether they're failing a concept or getting a concept. By establishing a digital tutor that knew how you learned and adjusted the curriculum based on your needs, the Navy demonstrated that after just a few months of training, folks that knew nothing about IT and networking technologies mastered the subject so well, they outperformed people that had 7 years on-the-job training because the knowledge was imparted on the students to meet their learning styles. We have, in this opportunity, a chance to have the Hampton Roads region engage once again. NASA, once again, to its credit, has already begun this shift from print to digital. They've announced they will publish a modeling and simulation textbook in open source format, Dana, for every one of your schools to use, and that textbook will be available in September of 2011. I encourage any and all of you to engage with the NASA team. Look for Jim Batterson in the room if you want to participate in that program so that we could see how this print to digital world might actually change how we learn what we learn. Fifth challenge is energy. We have to unleash this clean energy revolution, and it is our job in Washington, again, to fuel the research and development. The president financed a program called ARPA for Energy, which is the DARPA for Energy. And I must tell you, one of the key sectors of innovation has been to modernize the grid. That is how energy flows. And wouldn't you know it, Virginia has been at the center of the grid modernization research grants. Now, they're not local, they're in the Commonwealth, but they could be deployed locally. First, this awesome startup in Northern Virginia called Genesic is taking the 8,000-pound transformer that you see sort of graphically on the left-hand side of the page, and they're converting that into a 100-pound mini-me little box. That will not only dramatically reduce the cost to maintain those transformers, but it includes intelligence that would allow the utility sector to be a little bit smarter about when it's working, when it's not working, and how to engage. That's a startup here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. How many big transformers do you got in the Hampton Roads region, Dana? Maybe you give these guys a call and say, hey, open up a satellite facility and see if we can prototype your work. Second, the good people at Virginia Tech have been looking at the issues of power electronics. How many of you walk around with your laptop and that cord and that annoying box in the middle and it's a headache, the AC cord? That's the way we live today. It's energy inefficient. The power cord that fuels our laptops is only 75% efficient. The researchers at Virginia Tech are designing essentially a a zero additional overhead in the cord, if you will, power electronics to fuel laptops and other electronic devices that are 90% efficient. This $2 million research project is going after a $4 billion market. Give up your friends, give a call to the folks at Virginia Tech and say, hey, maybe ODU or others could collaborate in the implementation of this in some of our communities. These are 5 challenges. There's probably a dozen more based on all of the assets in the region, but the time to act is now, which is my final and last observation. There's never been a better time to be an innovator. That's an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur inside a corporation that's looking to introduce new products and services. There has never been a better time. I would like to share with you 3 models that we're trying to make available to harness your creativity as we look to solve these very big problems. Model number 1 is triple bottom 9, unleashing market opportunities powered by information. This is the government doing nothing more than delivering for you the data in machine-readable format and inspiring you and encouraging you to go forth and conquer. No procurement necessary, no paperwork, no nothing. Look at data.gov, look at all the data sets like the kids from Brightscope did to pull that 401k data, grab it and build products and services in new and creative ways. You can do it today without anyone's permission. The second model, borrowing a phrase from my good friend Clay Shirky, that is the notion of cognitive surplus. Each and every one of you in this room is likely employed and likely focused on your day job and your family. But you got a little bit of time. A little bit of time where you're thinking about what the educational system should look like for your kids and grandkids. A little bit of time thinking about how you'd look at a clean energy revolution and what you can contribute to the cause. It's not been very easy for folks who kind of have this little bit of time, but not full time, and certainly not a business with procurement and all that, to work with government. So we've introduced new tools so that you can play. Put your cognitive surplus to work. Visit challenge.gov. You will find dozens of opportunities, 5, 10, 15, 20,000, 100,000, $1 million challenges where you and a group of your friends could form a team and say, you know what, I can build the best application to do X, Y, or Z. Name your pick, whatever it is you want to do. It's funny, there was the First Lady ran the Apps for Healthy Kids contest. It turns out we have a database of the 1,000 most commonly eaten foods and their nutritional value. And the First Lady's like, look, as part of Let's Move campaign, I'd like for folks to understand the food that they're eating and the nutritional content they're in. But, you know, we don't have a lot of money for this stuff. We just got the data. So we published the data, and over 100 teams from around the country, some of them were moms and dads that have kids suffering from diabetes and other health conditions that required kind of a more sophisticated food planner. And they just got inspired to do this. Kids in school, startups, others, hundreds of people came forward. And the First Lady was able to celebrate and honor them with a little bit of $10,000 prize here and there to honor the best and the brightest that have come forward. That is a second category of cognitive surplus. Give us your time, engage in a prize, join a team, do whatever you want to do, visit challenge.gov. Third, for those brave souls who think that the time is right for you to enter public service, because I'm fired up to do my job every single moment of the day, you might feel the same. We are creating a new culture of startups in government because, Dana, if we're going to have an entrepreneurial culture in the country, we've got to have an entrepreneurial culture in the government. So we've launched startups. We're finding the best and the brightest who might want to come in maybe for 3 months or 6 months, get there, solve a problem, and move on. My favorite, Aryan Malik, founded a healthcare IT company, sold it for hundreds of millions of dollars. He's a totally successful guy. And Aryan was onto a problem. There are no technical specifications that would allow a doctor to email your medical record from Dr. A to Dr. B. Dana, how many of your caregivers email your records to anyone else? They don't do it because there's no spec. It violates HIPAA, privacy, what have you. So we brought Aryan on board and said, Aryan, you've got a mission. In 90 days, work with every healthcare IT company that wants to participate, and there were 80 who signed up. You have 90 days to reach consensus on technical specifications for safe, secure email. That sounds kind of nerdy and wonky, but Aryan said, yes, sir, sign me up. Came to the task. The team delivered the goods. 6 months later, the first test, a random company in Minnesota, emailed immunization data from a hospital to the state health department at 95% less the cost of traditional health exchange data. And now, a year to the day, Arian came to launch this startup. 95% of the healthcare IT vendors by market share have announced their intention to support the email specification. That means every doctor in America will have, for $15 a month, unlimited, safe, secure email, and that price will fall as competition comes because we attracted Arian, an entrepreneur, to come to Washington, help convene and support this startup, and launch it. These are the ways we'd love you to engage. Go forth and conquer on data.gov. Participate in challenge.gov in teams. Or, for the brave souls, come on in, find a project, and let's put you to work. Thank you for your time.